One cold morning in late December at Grand Central Station, New York. The violin sounded lonely among the hurried crowd. A homeless man, torn clothes, worn shoes, playing music with hands purple from the cold. The police came, not because of the music, but because a rich woman complained of being bothered in public. Isaiah Brooks handcuffed. Guitar stopped mid-play. And 3 hours later, he stood in the dock. Judge Raymond Clark looked at him as if he were a burden on society. Dry, cold. He is the man who sentenced more than 200 homeless people to deportation in just 1 year. Anything to say? Give me 90 seconds. I won't talk. I'll play. This is not a stage. No. But it was the last time I was human. The judge sighed and agreed. And when Isaiah picked up his violin, the whole courtroom was silent. Because 90 seconds later, no one in that room was the same anymore. Do you think a song can make a judge kneel? Stay till the end. This story may change the way you look at people. When Isaiah first played the violin, the sound was not perfect. But strangely enough, it's alive. Not the voice of engineering, but the sound of poverty, of winter, of rotting dreams on the sidewalks of Manhattan. Suddenly tilted his head back in his chair. Isaiah closed his eyes. The piece of music he played was not a famous one. It was the song his mother used to sing in their small apartment in Harlem, where music is the only thing not stolen by poverty. When the last note sounded, no one said anything. Just silence. A kind of silence that is weight. As if all accusations were redundant. Who is this person? Judge Clark whispered. But perhaps he was asking himself something bigger. Who am I, if I don't listen? 2 weeks before that trial, Isaiah was a nobody. A 22-year-old black man living under the Williamsburg Bridge. Better known for his criminal record. More than a street musician. He was arrested 3 times for stealing bread. Once for sleeping in the park after curfew. And this time, the most serious, was for allegedly vandalizing an art gallery. He used to mop floors for a living. No lawyer wanted to take the case. A homeless young man, no degree, no one to back him up. The file says, rebel. The press called him Harlem's bad boy. And then, a woman appeared. A gray-haired, plainly dressed, unknown lawyer. She introduced herself. I'm Ellie Moore. I believe in music. Isaiah looked at her as if he had just seen something that did not exist in his world. Unconditional trust. And if I'm wrong? He asked. Ellie replied, well, we're both at fault, but at least we'll fight. The courtroom was not crowded that day. There were only a few people, mostly curious onlookers, who came to see this strange case. A former conservative prosecutor, retired for 7 years, returned to court to defend a young man who had been arrested for stealing bread. She didn't bring a laptop, just an old leather briefcase and a faded blue pen. The plaintiff presented evidence. A blurry camera captured the silhouette of a young man wearing a hoodie smashing a glass door. Instagram photo of Isaiah standing near the area that same night. A police officer testified that it was definitely him. Ellie did not immediately object. She just asked gently, Officer, did you know Isaiah is left-handed? He hesitated. The blurry camera image shows the glass breaker using his right hand. The whole courtroom fell silent. Do you see this violin? Ellie held up a chipped wooden instrument. That's why Isaiah was there. He was playing Bach's Last Piece under the streetlights. The audience was silent. A cough is like thunder. Isaiah bowed his head, his hands clutching his knees. The old violin lay on the table in front of him as a blurred line between right and wrong. Ellie stepped into the middle of the room. Her voice low, but clear. I'm not here to prove that Isaiah is an angel. I am here to ask, when a child plays music in the middle of the street, why are we afraid of him? She turned to the jury, her eyes calm as morning dew. This boy didn't break the window to steal. He silently breaks down the invisible walls that society builds, just with a song. One of the jurors pulled out a tissue and wiped his eyes. Ellie opened her briefcase and pulled out a handwritten note. I investigated. Nothing was taken from the shop, except a loaf of bread and a carton of milk. Then she read the last line. Breakfast for Isaiah's 4-year-old sister. It was her birthday. The whole courtroom was silent. Then there was a sob. The white woman in the second row, who had been frowning slightly earlier, suddenly raised her hand to cover her mouth. Isaiah kept his head down, but he heard. And in the dim light coming through the glass, his eyes were moist, but no tears fell. The defense attorney stepped forward, holding Ellie's notes. His voice low. We are not talking about a criminal. We are talking about a child being forced to become an adult. In a wealthy city where compassion is sometimes a luxury, a judge adjusted his robe, his hands shaking slightly. Ellie looked straight at him. If the court convicts this boy for trying to live a decent life in poverty, so what are we teaching a generation? Her voice paused, silent for a few seconds, as if to give someone a chance to breathe. Then she said a sentence slowly, each word falling like a ringing bell. Sometimes, justice is not in the law. It's in how we treat each other. The whole court seemed to stop after that statement. Richard's eyes, the billionaire father who once controlled every game, now looked towards the boy without saying a word. On his face, for the first time, a crack appeared, not for losing, but for starting. Listen. An old memory came back to him. My late wife once said, when people don't know what to do, let humanity guide the way. He never understood. Until now. Isaiah remained seated, his hands resting lightly on the edge of the chair, as if to keep himself from drifting away in the judgment. He no longer felt afraid. He just wanted to know. Could those adults see me? The judge bowed his head, his eyes lingering long on the name Isaiah Jones. Then suddenly, he banged a hammer. Adjournment of court. We need to review the defendant's entire social background. Ellie sighed softly. Richard clenched his fists. For the first time, they didn't win. They opened a door. Delay is not victory, but opportunity. 3 days later, in a small room downtown, Ellie sat in front of the camera. Not a single reporter invited her on air, but she herself, live-streamed. Hello, my name is Ellie Graham. I represented a young boy named Isaiah in court. And today, I want to tell you the story that no one wants to hear, about a system that we believe in. No professional lighting, no script. Only one woman, disheveled, eyes dark with circles, was telling the truth. She talked about Isaiah. About his mother, who used to be a nurse but lost her job after the pandemic. About how a child is raised by temporary policies, confusing paperwork and indifference from society. An hour later, the video went viral. Then 2 million views. And most of all, thousands of comments. I was Isaiah too. My child is like that. We have to change. The power of a true story, sometimes more powerful than a court ruling. Within 24 hours of the live stream, Ellie received a call from someone she didn't expect. Richard Sanders, senior editor of The Atlantic. I have watched your video 3 times, he said. She is not an ordinary lawyer. She is a truth teller from the heart. He asked her to write a long, complete article and post it on the homepage. Ellie hesitated. What good is it if the system stays the same? Richard replied, you can't fix what you don't understand. Let them understand. Ellie writes, not an article, but a testimony from inside the system. She's not just talking about Isaiah. She told about the hidden numbers, silent cases, children whose names no one remembers. When the article appeared on The Atlantic, it doesn't just make waves. It became a storm, and someone, very high up, began to get scared. At the headquarters of the city police department, a closed meeting was held. The name Ellie Carter is no longer just a whisper, it is a thorn in the side of many powerful people. She's painting a picture of justice, said a department manager. His voice heavy. Millions of reads, thousands of comments, and the attention of the federal government. Another person spoke up. Maybe it's time to invite her to the negotiating table. Meanwhile, Ellie receives an invitation from the office of Senator Angela Ruiz, a well-known advocate for judicial reform. The meeting took place in a brightly lit room. But there was no warm welcome. Angela looked straight at Ellie. You can break things, or you can help build things. Ellie did not answer immediately. She looked out the window and saw a group of students passing by, laughing loudly. She thought about Isaiah and about the unsaved children. Then she turned back, her eyes determined. I will do both. Ellie's answer silenced the room, not because of arrogance, but because it is full of weight. Angela Ruiz leaned back, assessing Ellie again. You know, if you choose this path, you will no longer be a freelance journalist. You will be monitored, binded. Ellie nodded slightly. But if I do nothing, I will also be bound by silence. A week later, Ellie appeared at a Senate hearing. Beside her was someone no one expected, Richard Doyle, who was the police chief she exposed in the first series. He said to the crowd, I used to think Ellie Carter was a saboteur. I stand here today because she made me look at myself. Ellie bowed her head, not in victory, but in the change that had begun from the very people she had faced. After the hearing, in an empty hallway, a reporter asked her, "Do you think you can change the system?" Ellie just smiled slightly. "I don't need to change the whole system. Just enough people believe it can change." Immediately after the hearing, Ellie walked out of the Capitol building, the pale afternoon sunlight shining on her face. A crowd of reporters surrounded her, cameras flashing. But Ellie said nothing. She walked straight, not out of pride, but knowing that today's attention was not the ultimate goal. That night, social media exploded. The video of Richard Doyle speaking out in support of Ellie has been shared millions of times. One user wrote, "For the first time, I saw a journalist who didn't follow the news, but made the news change direction. On Ellie's desk is a new file, anonymous letters, exposing the web of interests between energy corporations and government." She turned each page slowly, as if each word were a heartbeat. In another corner of the city, Angela Ruiz gets a call. "She won't stop," a cold voice said. Angela looked out the window. The lights of the Capitol were dappled on the glass. "Neither should we." A few days later, Ellie received a strange text message. "It all starts on the third-floor data storage area, the old Intergate headquarters. But be careful, not everyone in that building is an ally. No name, no IP address. Just a warning and an invitation." She decided to go, alone. Intergate headquarters has been abandoned since last year after a transformer explosion. But no one knew that the basement was still powered. As she walked in, the sensor lights lit up in segments as if someone was watching her every step. At the end of the hallway, an old iron door opened softly. In the musty room were dozens of dusty hard drives and a large server still operating silently. The screen flickered, showing an old DOS interface. Ellie says, "Access archive." The data started loading. But just then, from the corner of the room, a figure appeared. A man wearing a mask, not speaking. "You shouldn't have come here," he whispered. Ellie flinched, but her hand remained firmly on the mouse on the console. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice low but not shaky. The man did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked toward her, each step slow but sure. "You are opening a door that many have risked their lives to lock," he said, stopping a few feet away from her. "What is contained in this archive was once labeled a government-level threat." Ellie glanced quickly at the screen, where the text appeared. "Project, Lucent Status, Terminated, Key Witness, Drive E. M. Harper." Her heart clenched. Harper. Her last name. Her father. What does he have to do with it? Ellie asked, her voice barely a whisper. The man nodded. He was the last one to try to reveal the truth. And he disappeared 11 days later. Ellie took a step back, her mind reeling. The story her mother never told her. The broken dreams, it all began to take shape. "You must choose," the man said, his eyes fixed on her, "to continue or to withdraw." Ellie didn't answer right away. Her mind was filled with the chaotic drumbeat of memories slowly unraveling. Scraps of paper in old mailboxes, half-torn photos, and her mother's weary eyes when she asked about her father. She looked at the mouse. The cursor was still blinking on the command line. Download remaining 17 files? The man pulled out a card and tossed it lightly onto the table. It slid to a stop next to her hand. On it was the logo of an organization Ellie had only heard of in rumors, Helios Protocol. "This will unlock the rest," he said. "But if you choose that path, there is no turning back." Ellie closed her eyes for a second. Then she opened them. Her gaze was no longer hesitant. "My father chose the truth. So do I." She inserted the card. The screen instantly changed. Files began pouring in, one by one, the titles appearing creepy. Test Subjects 043-060. Neural Reprogramming. Incident Red Nova. Witness Statements. Operation Mirror Cage. Final Report. The lights in the room flickered. A sound came from the system. Remote trace detected. Evacuation recommended. The warning sound rang out like a hammer in Ellie's heart. "They've spotted us," the man said, his voice low, drawing a compact pistol from his waist. "Do you have a car?" Ellie pointed to the electric bike in the alley. He shook his head. "Not enough. Follow me." They dashed out of the apartment, the laptop still plugged into the USB port, running on battery power. As they crossed the hallway, Ellie glanced back. With each step, a memory flooded back. The laughter of children in the small kitchen, her mother's whisper as she held her to sleep. "You have to be stronger than your father." Downstairs, a black van was parked, its door open. Inside was an encrypted router, its screen showing a live satellite connection. The man jumped in first, Ellie following. The door closed just as heavy tires clattered from the alley. 3 unmarked SUVs sped up, screeching to a halt right by her door. He looked at Ellie. Now, prepare to meet your father. Ellie was bewildered. He is still alive? The van sped through the night, turning into alleys that only the locals knew. 100 questions were running through Ellie's mind, but she could only manage to say one. Where has he been all this time? The man replied without turning around. Hidden. Not because he is weak, but because he knows too much. He handed her a headset. Put it on. Now he'll talk to you. A deep voice rang out, with slight static but clear. Ellie, if you're hearing this, it means the time has come. You're the last piece I have left. She held her breath. They didn't kill me. They used me to set up all the people like you, children born from programs the government never acknowledged. Ellie was silent. She understood. The strange dreams. The extraordinary analytical abilities, the strange memories in her subconscious. It was no coincidence. You're not just a hacker, Ellie. You're the ultimate backup system. The car stopped. The back door opened. A tunnel appeared in the heart of the city. Ellie walked down the tunnel, her heart pounding, her footsteps echoing in the cold concrete. The walls were covered with monitors and computers, hundreds of data points updating in real time. Lines of code, satellite cameras, military signals. The guide pointed. This is the Phoenix bunker, what your father built in preparation for today. A network outside any control system. On the main screen, portraits of each member of the elite council appear one by one. Politicians, billionaires, judges, generals. Under each face is a label, subject compromised, clean, or unknown. Ellie's hands trembled. This is the list? Yes. The people who control the entire democracy, he replied. And the only one with deep access to the global security system is you. Suddenly, a red warning flashes on the screen. Intrusion detected. London node breached. They found this place, he exclaimed. Ellie stared at the screen. There was no turning back. The alarm blared loudly, the red lights flashing in rhythm like Ellie's pounding heartbeat. She turned to the man, her eyes flashing with determination. Turn off all satellite connections. Disconnect from the global network. He shook his head, urgently. It's too late. They already installed a backdoor. You only have one choice, to transmit all the data to the public. Ellie swallowed. If I do, those people will be exposed, but my father will also be called a traitor. We're heroes, he said softly. We cannot change the world without paying a price. She walked to the console and placed her hand on the fingerprint authentication screen. A line of text appeared. Activate whistleblower protocol? Ellie looked up at the old photo on the wall. Her father stood with her as a child, his eyes stern but kind. She whispered, Sorry, Dad. Then pressed the confirm button. All the secret data, plots, control codes, evidence of bribery began to be released to the world. Social media exploded. News outlets, blogs, and forums were flooded with data at once. Names that had once been untouchable were thrust into the spotlight. Politicians, corporate executives, military generals, all exposed in an unprecedented information storm. People everywhere were shocked and outraged. Crowds gathered in the squares, chanting Ellie's name. But she was hiding in an old basement, where the network could not track her. Richard, the man who had been with her from the start, looked at his phone screen, which was filled with protest scenes. You've lit a fire, he said. It will either burn or light the way. Ellie didn't answer. She looked up at the camera, where her father, now arrested, was being led down a dark hallway. He turned once, just for a moment, his eyes not reproachful, but proud. She was speechless. This war was no longer hers alone. This is the moment when the whole world will choose, turn away, or step forward. A week later, life was not the same. Ellie could no longer walk down the street without being recognized. But not with looks of fear, but with admiration, expectation, sometimes even a plea. Keep going. She was no longer alone. Hundreds of young people applied to join the network. Groups in Berlin, Rio, Seoul began spontaneously creating channels, sharing data, and building digital defenses. The world has changed. But at the same time, the old forces struck back. A new law was enacted to control socially disruptive digital behavior. Ellie's wanted poster was upgraded to the maximum. With a reward from the exposed corporations, $1 million for anyone who could lead her to the government. Ellie looked at the messages, eyes unblinking. We don't need to hide anymore. She whispered to Richard. It's time to come out into the light. He looked at her, confused but nodded. For the first time, Ellie live-streamed her real face. Hi, I'm Ellie, and I'm not scared anymore. Ellie's revelation created a global earthquake. Within an hour of going live, millions of people from California to Kenya had watched the video. The hashtag #IamEllie went viral, and thousands of people began sharing their own stories, their hidden traumas, their silenced truths. Each story seems to add strength to the other. A strength that no power can control. But the enemy is not silent. A fake video emerged, showing Ellie manipulating bank accounts, inciting violence, and threatening national security. State media and corporations broadcast the video globally. Ellie sat still, her face expressionless. Richard trembled. We will be overthrown. She just looked straight into the camera, her eyes red. If we keep silent now, the next generation will not have the chance to speak up. Once again, she pressed the record button. Welcome to part 2 of the truth. I have proof they staged it all. Ellie opens a chain of leaked documents, encrypted by an anonymous security officer who lost his life sending the final data. She shared every video, every internal email, every payroll for disinformation campaigns. The names of politicians, CEOs, and national advisors appeared on the screen, with concrete evidence. Each revelation is a punch in the face of hypocrisy. Reaction? Divisive to the core. Half the world calls her the heroine of the age, the first to dare to bring light into the global darkness. The other half believes she is a rebel, spreading panic and threatening social order. But what no one expected, the insiders, the very characters being accused, began to defect. A former intelligence chief went on air. She's telling the truth. We've done it, and worse. Ellie sat silently. No need to say anything. For the first time in her life, she felt the world was listening. But every light comes at a price. Immediately after the announcement, Ellie's bank accounts were frozen, all her personal devices were searched, and a federal warrant was issued for her arrest, accusing her of threatening national security. Not only that, the major media, which had been silent on the truth, turned on her. They called her a manipulator of public opinion, part of a treasonous plot. Close friends were questioned. Her mother, who lived in rural Minnesota, received daily threats. And one cold winter night, the old cabin burned to the ground. No one was arrested. Ellie, now living in the shadows, changed her name and appearance, but not her beliefs. She started a secret podcast series, shared only over encrypted networks, called The Echo of Silence. Each episode, she recounts a buried story. And every time it airs, a politician resigns. She became a shadow that made the powerful dare not sleep. 3 years later, a historic hearing took place in Congress. Broadcast nationwide, millions watched live. A surprise witness appears, face obscured, voice coded. But the testimony is as sharp as a knife. I am Ellie Hartman. I have been called a traitor, a menace. But the truth is, I am just a citizen with a conscience. The room fell silent. A council member tried to interrupt, but the hearing chairman signaled for silence. Ellie continued. You fear the truth because it cannot be bought. But what you fear most is that people will start to believe it. Following the hearing, senior officials were arrested. Whistleblower protection laws were amended. And Ellie's podcast, while never revealing her identity, became a symbol of modern-day free speech. The story does not end with blood or protests. It ends with a small, but ever-resonating sound. Truth. And one dares to tell it.